Hello, I'm Raksha, and my other group members are Kirsten, James, and Bruce. Our case study is on the topic of corporate and public real estate. We have chosen the case of Inland Revenue having to send 1,000 workers home from the Ashton Centre in Wellington due to seismic issues. The Ashton Centre in Pipitea, Wellington was built across 3 years from 2007 to 2010 and cost $120 million in construction. Inland Revenue, who occupies 7 floors in the 17-story building, were looking to renew the lease on the building. Prior to doing this, they commissioned a report to be done. This report found that the rating had fallen from what was previously assessed. Due to this drop, Inland Revenue decided to remove the workers from the building, given the potential risk of an earthquake occurring with the workers in it. Other companies also sent their workers home. Of those other companies, firm CAA, who also occupied the space in the building, have also shifted toward this way of work after seeing the report, which identified some local areas of concern.
The Ashton Centre building had also had issues in the past due to the 2013 Seddon earthquake and the 2016 Kaikoura earthquakes. Following the earthquake in 2013, cracks were identified in the staircase. These cracks were deemed superficial and were plastered over. However, in 2016 the building was evacuated because those cracks reappeared after the Kaikoura earthquake. These two instances of the building being susceptible to earthquakes show a reason that may have been part of Inland Revenue's decision to evacuate workers even though the building was deemed safe to work in. The NBS rating, which evaluates the performance of a building's safety in comparison to similar, newly built structures, had not fallen below 34%, which is the necessary threshold percentage. Wellington has a high seismic risk, as defined by the Building Act 2004, with a seismic hazard factor of greater than 0.3, which is the highest margin. With seismic safety being prevalent concern in the Wellington area, it can be understood why the companies in the building decided to send workers home. This, combined with the previous instances where earthquakes affected the building, would have created cause for concern.
Inland Revenue took the results of the report commissioned and the high seismic hazard of Wellington into account and made the decision to remove the 1,000 workers from the Ashton Centre, shifting them to work from home, removing the risk of injury in the case of seismic activity. Whilst the employees sent home could have had prior experience with this way of work due to the nationwide lockdowns experienced in 2020 due to the pandemic, this shift could potentially result in workflow of the Inland Revenue workers being hampered, as this way of work, while safest in the situation, isn't the most productive for some. Based on information reported, we believe the Inland Revenue workers are not likely to return to the building premises until sufficient work has been done to mitigate the risks and improve the seismic safety of the building. This may require the workers of Inland Revenue to remain in an online at-home work environment for quite some time. Due to the possibility of long-term removal from the Ashton Centre building, the IRD hoped to secure short-term office space in Wellington Central by the end of September to allow those staff that were sent home a place to work. A spokesperson from the IRD states space is being secured more immediately for some staff who need office space now, and there are also some staff co-locating with colleagues at other government departments. Inland Revenue has refused to state what the NBS rating was prior to the drop, but its guidelines suggest that the rating dropped by at least 34%.
The steps and proactive property managers should have taken in order to ensure that the building was safe and had a good seismic rating were. When the building in 2013 had suffered cracks, it should have been shut down, and the property manager should have ensured that these cracks were fixed so that this didn't lead to any further damage in the future. Along with fixing the crack in the south wall, a whole report of the building should have been carried out to ensure that the building had a good seismic rating so that IRD and other tenants were informed of the safety of the building. Also, regular inspections in regards to building safety standards and regular clear communication between the property manager and IRD should have occurred. as IRD was the main tenant that had occupied the majority of the building. By having good communication between the manager and the tenant, it would have reduced the chance of having to send staff home due to damages in the building and will ensure that the IRD is getting their money's worth from occupying the building. If the property manager had taken the step of fixing the crack and not just plastering over the crack, then the evacuation that IRD had to do in 2016 wouldn't have occurred, as the cracks in the stairwell wouldn't have appeared again at a later date. The outcome from this situation in Wellington is an example of how proactive property management throughout the process would have reduced the risk released by the IRD.